balance of the patient. So the patient on day one is made to stand and asked to hold the walker, grip the walker at the grip with the hands, and then a rough assessment can be made. He can be made to stand and asked to raise one of the legs. Raise one of the legs, which is usually the injured leg. Ask him to do this sort of a movement, and if he can do it independently, then probably his balance is good enough. The second parameter to be assessed is the power of the quadriceps muscle. So that can be done with the patient seated on the bed, both the legs at the edge of the bed, knee bent to 90 degrees, and you can ask the patient to extend both the knees. And if the quadriceps is 4 or 5, then he's a good candidate to start using the walker. So once a reasonable assessment of the stability of the patient has been done, then we ask him to start ambulating. It is important to emphasize that the patient should have an able-bodied attendant with him when he is initially being trained to use the walker. And this able-bodied attendant should be positioned behind the patient with his hands somewhere gripping the waist of the patient. So the attendant is behind the patient with his hands positioned here, so that in the unfortunate event of the patient slipping or collapsing, he can be gripped. And that is why I've used the word able-bodied attendant. With these parameters having been satisfied, the stage is now set for your patient to start ambulating using a walking frame. So the first step is the patient lifts the walker and puts it in front. How much in front? Not more than roughly 12 inches. And then he moves into the walker. He moves his foot if it is partial weight bearing or non-weight bearing, the injured limb goes in front. So keeping in mind that the left lower limb is affected, the patient takes the lower left limb in front. If it is only toe touching allowed, he shifts his body weight onto the grips of the walker and then moves his pelvis in front. It is better to initiate walking with a frame walker using small steps. Patient should not be progressing too fast or too much forward. Same thing is repeated and he moves into the walker. The description is he has to move into the walker and he should not try to go beyond the limits of the walker. His limb should not go beyond this level. To show you from the side the same ambulatory process, the patient first should have the ability to lift the walker and put it in front, about 12 inches in front. Left lower extremity is the affected one, so just toe touching allowed. Ask him to move into the walker. And when he moves into the walker, he should avoid taking the unaffected side too far forward, because then he can fall backwards. His center of gravity would now be falling behind his spine. to demonstrate a pair of crutches, how to prescribe and how to adjust the length of the crutches. It's an important exercise, and I think the surgeon should be aware of how it is to be done. So, just to look at the construction of a pair of axillary crutches, you will see that there are two metallic struts which are connected at the distal end with a single rod which is telescoping in nature for height adjustment. In between these two metallic struts is the hand grip. This hand grip should be ideally adjustable so that it can move proximally and distally. So that ultimately the elbow should be in 30 degrees of flexion when the grip height has been adjusted. At the proximal end, the metallic struts are again joined together, and there is this proximal cuff which is gripped in the axilla, which is going to be gripped in the axilla. So this needs to be soft. This can be additionally padded if required to adjust the height of the crutch to the optimum level suitable to the patient's height. We need to have the patient in what is known as the crutch stance.